Hello again, everybody. I'm Chief Meteorologist Scott Dorval. It is playoff time in fantasy football, and yes, indeed, you've made it this far. You've beaten all those other teams. Now you're playing the cream of the crop, and you're hoping to get that extra edge. Maybe you've checked every other stat, but why not look at overunderfantasyweather.com to find out how your quarterback fares in bad weather or even in good weather? We've got two games that are in a dome. Is your quarterback or one of your potential quarterbacks playing in a dome this week? We'll check that out and see how well they do in those ideal conditions. Plus, what about the cold weather, the stormy weather? We'll take a look at this chart right here, and this shows Sunday pretty much towards the third quarter of our first game on Sunday. There's no real major adverse weather. I'm not seeing anything major. There's some wind that will go on in a couple locations we'll look at. The coldest place, you guessed it, the Bears visiting Green Bay. Aaron Rodgers, temperature around 10 degrees. We'll see how Aaron Rodgers does there in case you're thinking about playing him. Now, don't forget the Broncos are going to Kansas City to play the Chiefs. And, of course, with a new quarterback at the helm at Denver, they're doing pretty well. So we'll see how the Chiefs fare. The charts, some charts are saying no snow at all, but this shows a chance of some snow coming into Kansas City, maybe towards the end of the game. So that could affect Patrick Mahomes as well, or Locke if you've got him. So we're going to take a look at all of these potential matchups here. We'll go to overunderfantasyweather.com. All right, let's start with Baker Mayfield. He's going to be playing in a dome as he goes into Arizona this week. And we can take a look at the stats right here. We set the temperature at 65 degrees or greater, which is basically ideal conditions, and a wind less than or equal to 0 miles per hour. So that'll give us a calm wind. And here you see he's played 14 games. He's averaged 266 yards passing. But the one game that he played, which is just on December 2nd, 397 yards. So he threw for a lot of yardage, although he did throw 3 picks. So it's tough to tell with Baker Mayfield since you don't have a lot of stats on him. But let's move on to our next quarterback with overunderfantasyweather.com. Kirk Cousins is going to be playing in a 15-mile-per-hour breeze. Now, he will be playing the Chargers, so they'll be in Southern California enjoying warm weather for all the games under conditions where we've had temperatures greater than or equal to 60 and a greater than or equal to 15-mile-per-hour wind. Average passing yards are generally 261 for the entire NFL, and this is from 2008 to 2018. But for Kirk Cousins here, he threw about 240 yards in these two games on average, and no huge changes here. He's just a little bit below what some of these other quarterbacks would be throwing. What about Phillip Rivers here? Now, they'll be in New Orleans. He'll be under the dome here, so we set the temperature to 60, and actually, Phillip Rivers will be, with the Chargers, won't be in the dome, so he'll have a bit of a breeze going on. So how does he do with that 15-mile-per-hour wind? Well, again, 271-yard average passing. He's at 217. So you do see a dip here when Rivers is with some gustier wind. This is 4-game sample right here. And touchdowns are down a little bit from 1.9 to 1.2. Interceptions are up a little bit. So something to think about with Phillip Rivers. Maybe a little bit of a breeze could affect him. All right, here's Drew Brees. He's the one that's going to be in the dome as Indianapolis comes to town. When you take a look at the numbers here, of 185 games overall for weather conditions like this, ideal conditions, 309 average passing. He's at 319, so his numbers are higher. He's used to playing in a dome. Of course, he does very well. Even his touchdowns are up just a little bit, and the interceptions are down. So again, Drew Brees is always a good choice in a dome. Depending on who it is, he's maybe competing for that position for starter this week. What about total points per game? Looking at the conditions where we have a 60-degree temperature or greater and a 15-mile-per-hour wind for all games played between 2008 and 2018. In this almost 3,000 games here, the average points is 45. And so the over-under in a lot of these games you see is around that lower 40s. When you add 15-mile-an-hour wind, look at the point go down here. The average points go down about 4, so down to 41.1. Something to think about with a 102-game average. So as you get a little bit breezier, just a little bit less in the points. All right, let's go to Aaron Rodgers now. In Green Bay, it is going to be cold. With the wind chill, it'll feel less than 10 degrees. The breeze won't be strong, but it will be cold. So how does Aaron Rodgers do in 174 games with conditions like this in general for all of the NFL from 2008 to 2018? 271 is the average passing yards. And look at Aaron Rodgers. He's right on that average at 269. Average touchdowns is 2.1. He's a little bit lower, but he's also just a hair lower on the interception. So Aaron Rodgers, as you would expect, does well when it comes to the colder weather. All right, there's a look at some of the quarterbacks that will be playing this week. Did we cover yours? If not, you can go to overunderfantasyweather.com, plug in the weather conditions to see how well your quarterback will do, either in good weather or how well they've done or how poorly they've done in bad weather. So you want to get that extra edge, be sure to go to overunderfantasyweather.com.